Welcome to Hashtag General, a show that was off for over a month and I wish it was for vacation. I'm your host, Logan Studley, and joining me, as always, the wonderful, fantastic Chris Akamura. How are you doing, Chris?
Very good, Logan. How you been?
Like I said, wishing I had been gone on vacation. Um, we'll talk about that here in a second, but before we dive into what I was up to, and James was up to, what have you been up to? What have you been watching? What have you been playing? Even though I know we'll talk about Halo later in the episode. So,
yeah, just working and hanging out. Well, we just got back from Disneyland, which I know we're gonna talk about a little bit in a minute.
yeah.
But other than that, just kind of hanging out. Samantha starts school in a week
Oh boy, this is
for the first.
kindergarten, right?
Yeah,
Or
so prepping for that. We're gonna go school supply shopping later today. So that's
fantastic.
so that's a fun time. You know,
She's
the
growing up.
thing, yeah, things that you do. But other than that, pretty much business as usual. We got a couple big projects going on at work, so
Yeah,
just kind of chopping away at those, and you know,
yeah. Life moves on. Uh,
pretty much.
yeah. I
Well,
guess
you guys, I, we talked about. I think we've talked about it on the show before, but like, you want to go ahead and tell me the whole story here?
sure.
I have so many questions.
Yeah. I should have had James mic up, but didn't think to do it till right now. Um, yeah. James and I moved. So as much as the set looks probably mostly the same, because the way we shoot it, it's very minimal in its design and pretty easy to replicate. We are in a completely different part of LA. So, yeah,
Yeah, closer to me.
way closer to you. Like a very convenient, a little trip closer to you. So, I know you still haven't swung by. There's a standing invite for me to swing by your place for Halo, and I haven't been able to do it yet. But yeah, we basically the entire month of July, we were either moving into the new place or cleaning up the old place one day and then like unpacking at the new place the other. So like the entire month of July, it didn't feel like we ever really truly had like a weekend. Like we did some like D&D and stuff because like there's a weekly game that we're with Kelly and Charles and other people. But other than that, it was almost like, okay, D&D's over. Nice seeing everyone because we were able to do it in person for the first time in, you know, over a year, realistically, over the past few months. And then James and I would essentially be off to either the old place to clean or we would stay at the new place and like keep unpacking or cleaning up stuff. And I would say we're at like 90% unpacked. James, would you say like 90, 95, or am I low? Okay, James is going, okay. I am 95% unpacked. I think James is like 45% unpacked. Um, but
Thanks for putting me on blast.
yeah, it was kind of just constant. But I think the nice thing about how the way we did it is we had like a month period where we had to like, because our last day at our old place in terms of key turnover was the last day of July. So that gave us a month to clean. So instead of having to like being like trying to do like 12, 16 hours of cleaning, we were able to go in, do like 8 hours of cleaning and be like, okay, I'm done and go home. So that I think made it like easier to bear, but it still just was like a long process.
Yeah, actually.
But
Um,
questions, shoot.
yeah. So I know uh, Jeff also moved in with you guys, right? How's
Yeah,
that been going?
good. Like it's, I think
Obviously,
it's,
it's Jeff, and we all love Jeff, so it's not
yeah,
like this is
it's
a huge
Jeff. He's
shocker.
one of, yeah, he's one of the best human beings on the planet. So I think a lot of it is just more like James and I have found ourselves falling into because we were roommates for so long that we are very cognizant of things that if like they're going to impact someone else in the environment to be like, hey, I should let you know. Or like we would be out running and doing stuff, and then we would get like, oh, let's get food, and then we would realize like on the way back, it's like, oh crap, we should have like sent Jeff a text message to see if like he wanted anything while we were out. And it's just more, I think it's just the adjustment to for us to having a third person in the environment that we have to be aware of, rather than like it feeling intrusive or any way. And I think it's just, it's nice to have, like again, Jeff being one of the most awesome people on the planet. It's, he's a
Yeah, it's
decent guy
pretty
to hang out
simple.
with. So it's kind of, you know, kind of nice.
That's awesome. I got to come visit you guys.
Yeah, you do. You
Um,
do need to come visit. Uh,
so then my other question is like, I guess I haven't even seen the place yet, but like, how
yeah.
are you guys set up? Like, is it more? Obviously, there's more space because it's a
Yes,
house,
there's
but
more
like,
space.
but like,
So
yeah, like, how are you guys set up like room wise? Is there like in terms of like where everything is, like where like is your PC in your room now? Like, or what's going
yeah,
on? Like,
so my room is smaller than the room I had at our old apartment.
right.
But on the flip side, one of the things at the old apartment was I had my desk and everything in the living room. And at certain points during the pandemic, there was kind of a flux switch where like the gaming PC ended up in my room, but the like work computer and the iMac stayed out. And now there's been kind of a switch. So the nice thing is even though my room is smaller, all of like the work stuff isn't in there because there is a space that's literally like right off to my right. You can't see it; it's off camera, but that is going to be like my little office. So I'm going to have like a workspace, and so that's nice. So even though yes, the room is smaller, it did. The good thing about it being smaller is that there was some downsizing I wanted to do anyway, and this just kind of forced it. There's some rearranging that still needs to happen. There's some things where I'm not like 100% happy with like the current layout, but it's more like trying to like right now my computer, the gaming PC is on the floor where by my feet, which is really not where I want it to be. So
Right.
it's things like that where it's just like trying to figure out like the best place to put that rather than it being like, oh my god, I need more space. James's room is, I swear, he has enough space in there. If he decided that he hated Jeff and I, he could totally have the space to build a kitchenette, like wall off, build like a slide or something so he could easily get out of his room and then like get packages or something, and he would still have plenty of space for like a sizable bedroom. So, but yeah, no, I think the big thing is way more space. So it's easier to kind of just like spread out and relax and have your own private space. And then also I think math wise, like by square footage, I think you could fit our old apartment on the ground floor
Yeah, that's
of the
crazy. So
new
just so
one.
much more space, right?
Yeah, so it's just you know a lot of like the unpacking that we still have left to do is like hanging, like figuring out where to hang artwork and like posters and stuff like that. And trying to figure out like the best way to set up like the TV setup system, because the TV I have is woefully inadequate for this space. It's a 32-inch TV in a room that, if you do the math and the measurements, requires a 75-inch TV. So it's kind of not the most useful thing. So there's just like a lot of little things where we're trying to figure out the best way to put stuff up. But otherwise, I feel like, and I think that's kind of just where we've been at like the past week or so. It's been less of, okay, we need to unpack, and more of a, okay, we kind of need to figure out where these things are going to go so we can like unpack them rather than just throw it anywhere. So it's kind of like the more
Yeah, I feel
casual,
you.
slow part of the move rather than the frantic part of the, I need to unpack the stuff so I can actually, change my clothes. But yeah, it was, God, a month and a week, I want to say, where we were just in moving mode. like the entire time. So
Yeah,
yeah,
moving is stressful.
it is. And that
That's
first,
awesome though.
yeah, the first weekend where I was like, oh, I can kind of just like, we did something and I'm like, oh, I can slack off the rest of the afternoon. I totally slacked off the rest of the afternoon. But this is something I didn't throw on the topic, but in terms of watching and playing, part of the things I slacked off and did is I dived into Lord of the Rings Online again, because of course I did. Because one of the things, and I would like to get kind of like really quick, this will be just like a fast, quick thought thing. They've been doing a lot more with the idea of legacy servers where, or what they call like legendary servers, where it's not like they're running like the 2007 version of Lord of the Rings Online. It's still the current game, but they cap the level and the content to what it was at launch. And then they like do like a progression over time. And I always am interested when they do this. Right now, the current trend is they're doing one where it's actually they're slowing down the rate of XP, so you can actually increase the difficulty of the landscape and decrease the XP gain, so it takes you longer to level up and you are more likely to die, as I did repeatedly, which is something
That's
that I
super
can
cool.
say hadn't happened really since I first played the game. Where I would run into like a mob and be like, "Oh, I'll be fine. It's just a wolf. Oh God, I'm going to die." And that happened. The first time that happened, I was just like, "Oh shit, this is like when I first
Yeah,
started
that's super
playing."
cool.
But I think the problem is these servers are locked behind their subscription. So
Oh,
I re-upped my subscription because I wanted to try it out. But as much as I know I have friends who would probably be willing to try this harder version of Lord of the Rings Online, I don't think they'd be willing to pay $15 a month to do it. And I wonder if you agree with me where that is a mistake. That
um,
that it should be part of their free to play option.
so it's kind of the same thing as like what Blizzard did with WoW Classic, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I mean, Blizzard. We'll talk. I mean, I don't want to talk about Blizzard. I've talked too much about Blizzard, but
Yeah, I figured you had. That's why I didn't add it as a topic. I figured we'd talk about it
um,
later.
yeah. I mean, whatever. It's just a lot, and it's a problem that we've had across multiple companies, and
Hmm.
it's bad. But and the thing, and yeah, whatever. The thing with like the thing with WoW Classic and the thing with this is like it's like a non-trivial amount of work. So
Yeah,
I get their desire to like make it behind a paywall because it's a shit ton of work. And like a project like this probably wouldn't have been possible without making it subscription. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like if they didn't make it a subscription, it probably would have never gotten done. Or
that's
like it
fair.
would have never gotten greenlit to be done. Right? So like I could see them doing it where it's subscription now, but down the line it won't be. Like
Yeah,
they just need to make their money back or like make money on it and then they can make it free.
I hope you're right because they actually. This is not the first time they have done this. These new ones launched at the end of June, but they had actually their first time they did this had been like September. I want to say 2019. So like
Yeah.
pre-pandemic, they actually started the same general thing. There were differences. There was no like the XP gain was I think same or close to essentially vanilla. The There was no way to increase the difficulty. The difficulty slider is a very new thing and has only been live for almost at this point a month and a half. But those servers never went free, and in fact, one of them actually got shut down prior to the launch of the new one, just because when they launched, they had such an influx of people playing that they had to start a second server. But as things stabilized and people like dipped in and then kind of dipped out, they didn't have the population to keep two. And so there has been some debate in the community over like, well, why did we launch like if you had to kill one, why did you launch two more? But I think a lot of it too is that the new ones are like, for me, the problem I had with the old Legendary server had been I hopped in, and the way I play Lord of the Rings Online is I'll play it quite a bit for like a week, and then I won't touch it for like 3, and then I'll get back in like
Yeah.
in for a week and play. And on the other Legendary servers, that meant new content had come out, and I still was in like a starter region, and the joy of seeing a bunch of people in a starter region, which is something you don't really, if you jumped onto one of like the regular servers, you don't really see that often. And here it's lively, was gone already because everyone was already at cap or had moved on. And it doesn't feel like these current servers have hit that yet because of the slower XP growth.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I get the desire to like make back money by creating these servers, but yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where
Yeah.
it brings people like me
I'm not saying it's
back. Yeah.
ideal, but like I see why, right?
Yeah,
Like,
because they know people like me who love the game but kind of have drifted away and then drift back and then drift away and drift back are excited by the concept of everyone starting over again and there being a slower growth rate so that way there is less of a push to get to cap,
right.
and we'll re-up our subscription. So it makes sense, like it works. Like I'm a testament to that because I re-up my subscription. But it's still like I wonder if I don't know, and it could be right. You could be they could be right where the amount of people who would join in who would be free to play players wouldn't spend enough money to offset the lost income of making it subscriber only. So anyway, that's the thing I kind of fell into during the move because that was something I could just jump into for like an hour and then jump out. But yeah, that's what I was playing. Ready to move on?
Yeah, I'm down.
Cool. TV time, baby. And the Lord of the Rings train keeps going. We now have a release date for the Amazon's Lord of the Rings series. We still don't have a title, but we do know that it's going to premiere September 2nd, 2022. And with that, we got a preview image. James, why don't you go ahead and just throw the image on now while we're at it? Well, while we're talking about it. What were your quick
So so
thoughts on this?
so you had brought this up earlier, and like again, I was always, as we've been talking about this show for what seems like years now, the thing about the show is I've been like wary
Mm-hmm.
of like, man, are they going to nail this? Is the look gonna be right? Um, I've gone from wary to what I've called cautiously optimistic, where the show looks the from the image, the show looks great. Um, the I love the mood of this image, and like if this is supposed to be indicative of like what they what the
Yeah.
they're shooting for, I'm in.
Yeah, if this is what the
Um,
series is going to look like, they nailed it. Like this feels
yeah,
exactly almost like if they were going to take anything from the Peter Jackson trilogy, it was the idea like I think the focus on trying to create a very real but ethereal experience, and this is almost just like that. To like this looks like it may have been like, of course we know it isn't an image from the Peter Jackson trilogy, but this looks like it could have been from that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
James, you can go ahead
So
and move on.
if they can if they can nail the look and the feel, I think like that's good. Again, cautiously optimistic. I'm still gonna watch it and looking forward to it, but like I'm still concerned because I don't know what any of it is otherwise.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm kind of in the same boat where it's just like
like this image wasn't enough to sell me, right?
exactly like it's like it moved me from being very very wary and worried to like still cautious but like a bit of excited, being like, oh wow, this looks like how I would want it to look. But it doesn't change the
Right.
fact that there are so many things we don't know about in terms of what they're going to do. they're also playing around in a time period in Tolkien lore where there's like we know dates and we know figures and we kind of know like general ideas, but they're really kind of just out there on their own. Like it's like I guess the best way to put it, where it is like it's like getting on a highway that where you don't have a map, but you have a sign saying gas station in 30 miles. So they know in 30 miles they will get to a gas station, but they don't know the road that will get them there. That's kind of
This
how I feel about this
this
series.
analogy this analogy is so good. I was like, where is he going with this?
It's just like they're getting on the road, they know where it's going to end up, but they don't know
Yeah, no,
how
I
it's going to get there. And it's just
yeah.
which is a very kind of almost Tolkien thing. The idea the road goes ever on and on, but where it may take me, I don't know type thing. I totally
Right.
butchered that poem, but still, it's and so it's kind of just like I'm still worried because if there's any like people who know Lord of the Rings through the films are gonna, how many of them realize that there's gonna be like three characters maybe who they recognize. Uh,
Right.
it's kind of just there's a whole lot of like there's a lot of things that can go wrong. And so far, the one thing they've shown us is something that could go right, which is the look. So hey, we got one thing down. That doesn't until we have like even a trailer, because there are some great trailers out there for bad movies and there's some bad trailers for amazing movies.
Yeah.
And like we won't know until we actually like watch the first episode how it's going to play out. So it's going to just be kind of
Yeah.
like a year of waiting to get a general idea. But yeah, that's kind of like
We'll see.
this is going to be like the slow trickle. Like I feel like it's going to be like the world's like it's smart from a marketing perspective that they can just continually just slowly drip out things like this and generate buzz and like hell we're talking about it. So clearly it's working on some level, but
We're gonna get a 10-second teaser next.
yeah, it's going to be one of those things where they're going to milk this release for all it's
Oh,
worth,
definitely.
and it's going to drive me absolutely nuts. But yeah, that's Amazon's Lord of the Rings series. So we've got a year of speculating. That's what it
Oh
is.
boy.
Oh boy, indeed. Let's move on. So Ted Lasso is back. Have you been watching?
I have. Have you?
I have, and the
This season's awesome.
this season is awesome. Like the first two episodes, it was weird. I rewatched Ted Lasso when I've been visiting my parents back in
Hmm.
June. Like I watched like an episode before going to bed type thing. But for some reason, like the first episode like didn't quite click with me. Like still enjoyed it, but like I don't know why it didn't click. But this last episode, James, why don't you throw a
Yeah.
spoiler tag up here? This is the Colin Kaepernick episode. If Colin
Yeah.
Kaepernick had an owner and a coach and a team that,
Supported him. Yeah.
yeah, like that's the thing I really do like appreciate and I would applaud Ted Lasso's like as a show is because I feel you watch it and the optimism of the character is infectious. There are times where I feel like the best way to describe this show is wholesome but without fear of reality.
Right.
And so the fact that they kind of just dived straight into this, like, good for them. It would have been very easy for them to, like, not address it and still have an amazing season. And instead, they just went for it. Like,
Hmm.
and I'm interested to see how this plays out. And I'm glad they did it because this last episode was bloody fantastic.
Yeah. As soon as they started doing the thing with the tape, I was like, "Uh-oh, I know where
Yeah.
this is going."
Yeah, at the moment they did the thing with the tape, I'm like, oh shit. Like, they're not taking a knee, but they're fucking taking a knee. Um, it's like, and without fear. Like, and I think that's the best way to put it, is that the show walked into this and did it without fear. Because if you follow American sports or American politics at all, the Colin Kaepernick taking a knee has been unavoidable.
Yeah.
And this show just walked right into it and just like, nope, we're doing this. So like, kudos to them. Like, kudos to the team over at, writing and making that show, that they just went for it. So what do you think?
Yeah. No, 100% agree with you. And like again, it's Bill Lawrence, and
Mm-hmm.
I've been outspoken about what a big, huge Bill Lawrence fan I am. So
Yeah.
it's
No, it's
the man is a TV god, and I'll leave it at
yes.
that.
No, like we've I saw one person make a comment, because this is like the one show on Apple TV that
That's
I
worth
feel
having
like
Apple TV.
everyone is like, this is what makes it worth having. Um, there was a time period where it felt like Netflix was trying to become HBO before HBO could become Netflix, and instead what happened is both Netflix and HBO are trying to like be Netflix. And Apple's kind of almost had this opposite approach, where they don't have as much content as everyone else, but they are going for like quality over quantity.
Yeah.
Uh,
Can we agree though that Disney's eating everyone's lunch?
oh yeah, Disney is eating everyone's lunch. At this point, everyone is fighting over table scraps. They may not know it, but at least it feels that way. Like, Disney's almost, to me, become like the de facto, why don't you have it? The way
Yeah.
Netflix still kind of is, where everyone has Netflix because Netflix achieved like its level of domination. But I feel like Disney's become the one that has like all of it's the one everyone talks about.
Yeah.
So yeah. Apple TV has Ted Lasso. Disney has everything.
Mm-hmm.
But no, if you watch this show and you have not watched Ted Lasso, seriously, give it a shot. Like, I think Apple still does like the thing where you can get like a month free or something, and it's worth it. Even just to binge the first season, like, do it, because it is seriously one of the best TV shows I think that has come out in the past decade.
Yeah.
Let's move on, because holy crap, we still have a lot to discuss. I feel like the list is like a normal length amount. It's just there's some
Oh,
topics on here.
so before we move on too far, let's talk about Disneyland real quick, because we need to talk about the Magic Key stuff, because this is something that it was on the agenda, but it's something that it doesn't fit anywhere else.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. It probably says
Um,
games now, but it's Disneyland.
with Disneyland, but whatever. The Just real quick, because it's so uh, where they brought back. Obviously, they got rid of the annual pass system
Yeah.
when COVID hit, um, for obvious reasons, and they retooled it. And so my expectation was that they're going to raise the prices, because that
Hmm.
makes the most sense. They didn't. They lowered them. So obviously, welcome the Magic Key system, which is essentially just the annual pass system. They got rid of the Flex Pass, which is a little sad, but I guess for our uh, knowledge here, Logan, for us talking about it, the Imagine Key is the SoCal equivalent. So the SoCal Pass before was 419 a year.
Yeah.
The Imagine Key is 400 flat, so it's 399. So it's the same as last time. It's 179 down first, and then $20 a month after. So that's fantastic pricing. The catch is like obviously no weekends and no summer, but I'm not planning on going to Disneyland on weekends or summer anyway, just because
Yeah.
that's a garbage fire. And so yeah, it includes the 10% off merchandise and 10% off food and beverage, like usual, like most Disneyland passes do. So
Yeah. Because
that kind of stuff, right?
I'm looking at it now, and because I remember we were talking about this briefly before the show, because you asked me if I had heard about it, and I actually hadn't heard that they had announced the stuff, even though I've been personally waiting, because one of the things I know we talked about is prior to lockdown, I had actually been very tempted after our Disney trip to get a pass,
Right.
because I know would go regularly. Kelly and Charles, when they had passes, I swear they were going once a month.
Yeah.
But I think the big difference here is you, unlike the old pass where you could kind of just go whenever, I get the sense this one requires the reservation.
So they want you to start using reservation because they're to even go to Disneyland, you need a reservation now.
Yeah.
But in here, there's somewhere in here that says something to the effect of Magic Key holders get first crack at same day availability. So like obviously people. So when we went on like a couple weeks ago, we had friends that met us down there, and
Mm-hmm.
so we're talking to the people that work there, and they're saying, yeah, we're never full because obviously we like people cancel their reservation the day of or day before or the night before or whatever. Like things happen, right? So there's never a day where they're like 100% of the people that book show up. So there's always spots available to just walk into the park. But and so with your Magic Key, you'll have first crack at that.
Yeah. And I think the Imagine Key, too, looking at it, that's what, 3 visits to Disneyland will pay for it?
Yeah, it's super cheap. Well, think about it. It's 2 visits plus like merch and
Yeah,
food that
that's
you
true.
receive.
That discount in the with the food and merchandise. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so here's the line. It says, the guests will be able to purchase their preferred Magic Key pass. So their first opportunity to unlock uh, a visit to Disneyland Park or Disneyland California Adventure Park with a theme park reservation will be the same day. Well, same day reservation. So you can just walk in. And again, the thing is too is they work as park hopper. So if you're at Disneyland, if you have a reservation for Disneyland, they're not like if you can jump over to California Adventure at 1 o'clock or whenever the
Yeah.
hopping time is without a second reservation. So like if it's full at Disneyland, you can reserve for California Adventure. That's something you have two chances, right? Because
Yeah.
you reserve for California Adventure, you walk into California Adventure for the morning, and then if you really want to go to Disneyland, then yeah, you hop over when it's 1 o'clock when they open up park hopping. So the versatility of the pass is pretty good. And again, like I don't want to go on weekends or during the summer anyway, because fuck that.
Yeah. Because looking at this, it seems like the thing they wanted it to address from the pass of yesteryear wasn't the ability to kind of go to Disneyland whenever, which is what everyone feared.
Yeah.
It is more the, if you're going to go, we want you to have a reservation. And I wonder how much.
Well,
I think a lot of that is
they've
just
been
both
COVID. I
COVID
would
and
assume
yeah.
because right now everything's reservation, and they did it because COVID and because there's a limit, right?
Hmm.
So, you know, when you're looking at like just COVID, like the way that their COVID mandates have been, I highly doubt they'll keep the reservation system the way it is currently. Who knows? I could be wrong, but I think if as soon as things lift, right, or as soon as the restrictions lift and COVID protocols get a little more loose, then I could fully expect them just being like, "Hey, show up whenever." I don't think that
Yeah.
was necessarily the. I'm more shocked that it's $20 cheaper
Yeah.
than
It's
the original SoCal Pass.
because here's the thing too. Like the $179 down payment is only what, $50 more than a day pass.
Yeah,
And then
It's
it's
fifty
20 a
dollars more
month
than a
after
day
that.
pass. Yeah, and again, you're getting the discounts too. So like, all
Yeah.
you need to do is eat and spend maybe what,
Like
however much,
realistically,
$500 over the course of a year to save that money.
yeah, even if you only go while you to for sure save money, you would need to go, I want to say what, 3 times at that point?
Yeah,
Maybe like even after 2 times, it's probably worth it.
yeah.
And the truth is, if you have this pass, are you really only going to go 2 times?
No, I'm gonna call you on a Tuesday and be like, dude, what are you doing today? You want to go to Disneyland?
Right?
And you're gonna be like, yeah, sure. And I'm
Hold
just
on,
gonna
give me
drive
one
to
second. I
Disneyland.
need to write an email. Oh no, I have the star pox and and then I'd go to Galaxy's Edge. On the off
Yeah, you
chance
know what
my
I'm saying?
bosses
Like,
are watching, I would never actually do that, but you know.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you're never gonna do that, right? So, you know,
Well, the
make it
thing too
work.
is like I know I'm going to go next year at least once cuz I'm taking Caitlin, my sister, for her birthday.
Right.
So since I already know I'm going at least once, and I know I'll also like I really did enjoy when we went to Disneyland when it was you, me, and your dad.
Yeah, it's a good time.
It's a good time. Like I would love to do it again. And it's just like one of those things where I'm just like having had the Disneyland experience at because admittedly, as my mom put it after I told her how much I enjoyed Disneyland, she's like, "Yeah, you kind of got like screwed because I was the angsty teenager age, and also we went like week of Christmas." Like the absolute worst time for Disneyland, both in terms of my age and in terms of just the ability to do anything in the park. And having gone like as an adult in my 30s, it was just like, no, this was fun. Like just to kind of relax and go around. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, like the past kind of becomes a kind of a no brainer. But yeah, many Disneyland trips will be had next year, if not
Yes,
sooner.
100%. But yeah, the pass goes on sale on the 25th. I think
Which,
I think we'll be grabbing the ours frame one. So,
yeah, I'm actually going to very quickly add an alert on my calendar right now.
so
By Disneyland.
yeah, Logan, if you want to go on the 26th,
Very tempted. One of my bosses has been on me to take vacation days. So there might be a vacation day Disney trip.
I'm down, brother.
Yeah.
I know I have very few meetings on Wednesdays and Thursdays.
Ooh. We got to do it. I can already tell, like, Thursdays would be the best day for me. So we're going
Yeah,
to have to do a
like
Thursday Disneyland trip.
if you want to go and like I just gotta take Samantha to school and then we can go. I'm super down.
You drop her off and then you pick me up and we go. I'm down.
This is it.
There we go. Plans are being made, people.
Oh
Shall we move on?
yeah,
Cool.
moving on.
So this is, I think, one of the big news that everyone's talking about in gaming right now. The Steam Deck.
Yeah,
Um,
it's fascinating.
I
I'm
want to hear your thoughts. I have thoughts, of course, because I have
so
thoughts on everything. But
yeah. So hardware's solid. Um, my concerns come with like ergonomics of holding it as a mobile device. So obviously it's a lot heavier than a Switch. I already get tired holding my Switch for long periods of time. So like what's going to happen with a device that's way heavier and way bulkier? I personally think the touch trackpads are not worth having on there, but that's neither here nor there. That's a personal thing.
yeah,
I also have a concern that their goal is to run games at 30,
yes,
which is concerning to me because you always if whatever your target is, normally it'll run slightly under. So it'll probably run in my head. Like I know that we've seen tests and it does run at 30, but like in my head, I'm thinking about like if I run, there's some games where I know if I run it, it'll run at like 25, and you're like, man, 30 is already kind of pushing it. Where like our eyes are so adjusted to 60 at this point for games that like
Yeah.
30 just doesn't cut it anymore. So again, like these are really nitpicky things. I think it's an amazing piece of tech, and I think it's really cool, and I want to see it expanded, and I want to see more, and I want to see like Steam said that it's open source, so they want people to come in and take a crack at it, and like I want other companies to come in and take a crack at it, and maybe like optimize it for different things, because obviously Steam has to cater to a wide audience, so they have to make it possible to run a lot of different stuff on here. Where like I would love for a company to come in and be like, no, we've optimized for shooters, or like, hey, we've optimized for whatever, and like this is the whole purpose. And like it's smaller and it's thinner and like it doesn't do as much, but like it does this thing really really well. So like I'm waiting. I think this is going to open the door for all that stuff, and I'm really excited to see it. I don't think this is going to be the best version of this product.
Yeah, I think when I look at like they were talking about, oh, we're going to try to hit 30 frames per second with like current gen AAA titles. And I remember hearing that and just being like, that means this device in 2 years is going to struggle with a AAA launch.
Yeah.
But where I get the most excited, I guess, or I'm not excited is the wrong word, but the one where I am most tempted by is I think the two use cases that aren't, oh hey, you can use like AAA titles at 30 frames. It's the fact that I know I personally loved doing like LAN party type stuff growing up, where you would, you and your friend, ideally friends, but in my case, me and my friend, we'd get together, we'd load up like Age of Empires, and we would play a game, like play a match together. And a lot of gaming computers these days, like if you're not gaming off a laptop, you're gaming off a rig that is like big. Like it's not necessarily the most portable thing. And I looked at the Steam Deck and I was like, oh man, this might be almost the ultimate LAN machine, because the kind of games that you would often play, or what I think of when I think like LAN party or I'm playing a multiplayer game with my friends, those tend to be really well optimized to run on lower end systems, to where something
Yeah.
like the Steam Deck might actually just be fine. And if all you had to do was bring around your Steam Deck, a keyboard, and a mouse, like, awesome. Like, that to me is what I think is like one of the more appealing aspects to it, is the idea that if I was going to say go to your place because we wanted to play like a PC game together, that I could just bring my Steam Deck and my mouse and like a tiny ass keyboard and be fine. Also on that, one of the things that really made me go, oh man, if so for full disclosure, I did put down like the $5 down payment on the mid-tier one, the one with like I think the 512 NVMe storage.
Hmm. You actually got a reservation?
Well, the thing is you just go on the Steam website, or go into Steam, click the thing, and you can just. I think they're still taking reservations. They're just doing like a queue system, unlike the consoles, where it's like first
Oh,
come
got
first
it.
serve. So I just put down $5 to be in the queue. I don't have to buy,
Right, right, right.
which arguably is maybe how the console should have done it. But moving on, the thing that would be like, if based on when I did mine, I probably won't get the option to order it until like middle of next year. But if by happenstance I got an alert from Valve that I could order it like 1st of November, I probably would, only because I know that for Thanksgiving, I'm going to be spending a week at my sister's, and then for Christmas, I'm going to be spending a week at my parents'. And one of the things that when I had been up visiting my parents in June, one of the things I missed was, of course, I'm on the text chain with everyone, and I get a text where someone's like, "Hey, we're jumping into Fortnite," and admittedly, part of the problem is the Epic Apple spat. Otherwise, I could have done it off, my iPad. I couldn't join in. I was able to
Right.
listen in on Discord, but I couldn't play with everyone. And I realized, like, if I could, admittedly, I could do this with the Switch, specifically with Fortnite. But if I could take some of my games with me, because just M1 max, not every game is like already max don't get every game. And then on top of that, very few are ready for M1. It'd be nice to just have a portable system that I could just pull out when my parents have gone to bed, and I could just play games with my friends, or, spend a bit of time doing like a light game. I wouldn't want to do, again, they keep wanting to talk about like AAA games or showing off The Witcher and all that. I'm like, I'm not sure that's the kind of game I'd want to play on this system. But, a game I'm playing with my friends, yeah. Something where I can just kind of hop in real quick and play, sure. Like, it's incredibly tempting for that use case.
Sure.
Which, again, it's almost kind of like the same thing the Switch fit for, where the ability to kind of play on the go, in the sense that, again, I've said this before, and I think it is worth saying again, this is the gaming side of the market that Apple left on the table,
Oh yeah.
that they could have totally owned if they weren't assholes, and actually gave a shit about gaming. But
If Jobs didn't hate games.
pretty much, because point blank, I would bet money that the M1 and an iPad Pro kicks the pants off this. Admittedly, you're looking at a device that's like $399 versus a device that's like $899. But even like the A series processors probably could like be fairly competitive with the APUs that they're getting from AMD for the Steam
Sure.
Deck.
If they were optimized for it.
If they're optimized for it.
Right.
And so it's just like, I can see a use case for this. I'm not sure I should spend $500+ on one, because again, I put the money towards the mid-tier one. But I was looking at my travel plans, and I was like, if I had the opportunity, I probably would buy it right then, just so I would know while I was traveling that I could at least, hop in a game with my friends, and after like everyone's gone to bed, or if I just needed a break.
Yeah.
And so those are the two use cases. So LAN parties and traveling, where I'm like, okay, this Steam Deck might just be perfect for that. I just think, I think a lot of the problem is a lot of the games that they were showing off when they first showed it off were like Control and Jedi Fallen Order and Witcher. And it's just like, those are the games where the battery's going to die in an hour. And I'm not sure, like, if I was going to play those games and like be like, I'm going to have an immersive Witcher, I'm not going to be playing it on the goddamn Stream Deck. Like, yeah. I'm going to be playing that on my computer. I'm going to like turn on all of the major settings. I'm going to have my crazy ass screen go. Like, I'm going to do it on my big system. But Fortnite, yeah, I'll play that on a Steam Deck. But then again, there's also that
Fall Guys.
Yeah, Fall Guys, that would be a good one. Like, it's games like that. It's the ones that are smaller, aimed at multiplayer, that I think this will be perfect for. And I'm interested to see more about it. And it's just, I think this is one of those cases where, did you see Linus's, the LTT one where he went in? Like, there's so much about the system that is interesting. But it's like, again, I want to see benchmark tests where they aren't restricted by Valve. And from what my understanding is, a lot of the restrictions Valve put in place was apparently Valve wouldn't let him play any games that weren't installed on the system, not because they apparently Valve wanted permission from developers for allowing the game to be demoed.
Right.
On pre-release systems. And it's like, okay, that's fair. But like once this thing has launched and that restriction goes away, I wanted to see benchmarks for like a game that like I want to see Cyberpunk benchmarks. Not because Cyberpunk is going to run well in that game, it's going to run horribly. But that's kind of the benchmark I need to see. I'm like, I want to see what it does with a game that is not going to necessarily perform well because let's be honest, that's a lot of their marketing push around AAA titles implies that you could get like 30 frames a second at medium settings on like a game like Cyberpunk. And I don't think you can.
Yeah, no. I'm of the same mind. And remember, like the thing that I want to test too is like it is fully open source. So I mean, like the idea that I could flash the firmware and just put Windows on it,
Yeah.
and then have a PC with me in my
Yeah,
pocket could be cool.
I'm
So
interested to
again,
see
I'm
like performance
optimistic.
versus like Steam OS and Windows on that device. Like
Yeah,
there's so many things that we just don't know and won't know until it's in the hands of someone who can, test the ever loving shit out of it. But it's
and
definitely interesting and could very much kind of change the paradigm with PC gaming because
yeah,
let's be honest, like every time I look at gaming PCs, they're overpriced and don't seem to be worth it. Like in terms of
yeah,
performance. But moving on game wise, you were able to play some of the technical beta for Halo Infinite.
yeah.
I
So
still need to go over and play it, but I want to
well,
hear
it's
all your thoughts.
closed.
Well, okay, my time has passed.
So the obviously the first and third day were bots only. So oh no, wait. First, second, and the end of the third day were bots only. So we got to play against the bots, and it feels fantastic. The game feels great. The guns feel great. Gunplay feels great. It feels like old Halo. They took out the dash mechanic from Halo 5, which is a little disappointing because I really liked it, but it makes it feel a lot more older Halo, where when you don't have that. And then the for the first half of the third day, they opened up PvP. They opened up like full multiplayer PvP, and like that was incredibly fun. I can't believe that was like a surprise that they didn't tell us they were going to do, and it was just there, and they're like surprise. And so that was a ton of fun. And again, the game just feels great, and like the weapons feel great. The new weapons are kind of hit or miss. There's some I like, there's some I didn't. But overall, yeah, it feels like old Halo, and it feels really solid. And like I'm excited to see more. I'm sad that the whole story leaked because of this, but
Yeah, I heard the story leaks. I somehow magically avoided the story leaks.
yeah. So basically what happened was all of the story files were in the
Oh
build,
god. In the build. Oh
in the
god.
code, in the beta code. So people were able to data mine and find it all, and yeah. But essentially, I've luckily avoided it. I've seen a couple of headlines or a couple of like um, little things, but like nothing huge. I'm still not entirely sure what's happening. So I'm excited still. Gameplay is great. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But
Yeah,
overall, very promising first test.
I watched some gameplay, and as someone who had played a lot of Halo, especially
Hmm.
Halo 3, but never really played anything beyond that. Watching gameplay, I felt like I was like, "Oh, this is I could just jump in and play and feel I watched it and felt like, okay, I could just jump in and play and I would know what I'm doing and how it operates. Like it felt like
Right.
they nailed because I again the Halo I played the most was Halo 3. So the one I am most familiar with in terms of multiplayer is Halo 3.
Hmm.
And I watching this I was like, "Oh, I know like technically it's like better in terms of like graphic capabilities and like you list all the things but watching this I was like, man, I feel like I'm watching like Halo 3 multiplayer footage with like a few differences in terms of like designs of the guns and like armor variation, but it felt and looked like Halo from gameplay, which is something I didn't feel the same about with Halo 4 when I played it,
Hmm.
or when watching Halo 5. It didn't feel like they had really nailed Halo. But this one watching it, I'm like, oh, this just,
Yeah, it's very much back to basics, right?
yeah, which is
Um,
great because I think the truth is like, and when it comes to PC multiplayer for a shooter, well, not PC, like multiplayer for a shooter, like forget the PC aspect of it. That's brain brain fart from me. But in terms of like multiplayer shooter, it just felt. I remember, like I would play some Call of Duty or some other because I had a friend who really loved Call of Duty, but like Halo multiplayer was the thing to beat in terms of overall quality and polish and just feeling good. And when I played, because I started playing Fortnite in the past year because of lockdown, I sometimes get these glimpses of that same feeling, but I still feel like if you were to ask me which one was the better multiplayer experience, I think it's still hands down Halo 3 from like a gameplay perspective. I think every problem I had with Halo 3 multiplayer was the people I would be in it like match and be stuck within matchmaking rather than the gameplay mechanics.
right.
And that's just going to be something you get with every game. Whereas with Fortnite, it just doesn't. It's fun, but it doesn't feel like they went through and built it with the idea of being like, oh, we're going to try to create a, balanced multiplayer. But then again,
Yeah,
like there's a difference between like Halo and a battle royale. Like yes,
yeah.
like
I mean, well,
but
so that's the other rumor too is that Battle Royale is coming. I think like this is something that I've talked about with other people because a lot of people complain that because Halo is the perfect game for Battle Royale.
it
Like if they did
is
Battle Royale Halo, it really is. And so like imagine us driving around a Warthog, driving around a map, hunting people down. Like so I think a lot of people are upset that it doesn't have Battle Royale and it's a missed opportunity. My thing was like, look, they're focusing on what the core Halo experience is, which is Slayer, Capture the Flag, that like their core Halo experience, and then once they feel comfortable, then they'll launch Battle Royale.
and I
Because if you look at,
100%.
I don't know if you saw any of the footage of the menus and stuff like that. Like they have a battle pass, they have progression, they have the skins and like the armor systems and the customization systems for the guns and skins and all that stuff and loot boxes. And it looks like Fortnite. Like the way that they structured their menus look like Fortnite. And so it looks like they are set up for Battle Royale. There's game files where the announcer is saying Battle Royale. So, it
It
looks
makes
like it's in
sense.
there and it's set up. They just need to press go. And I think they're waiting to do that to make sure that they nail this experience. The thing that I do want to say though is that like, and this just goes with switching studios, where obviously 343 has a style of Halo and a style of how of the direction they've taken it over the years, and this feels like a real return to form to of like the Halo 1, 2, 3, the Bungie Halos. This feels like a return to form to that, and so like I think that's why it's resonating with people so much. I will say though that it doesn't nail like obviously Bungie's doing Destiny, and so Destiny feels like the perfect evolution of like Halo,
Yeah,
right?
the
Like when
little
you
bit
look
I
at
played of Destiny, I remember that was my immediate thought was I'm like, oh yeah, you can feel the Halo legacy running underneath this.
yeah, like it like Destiny just feels like Halo. It feels like what Halo should be in like the modern day, and that's what it is. But like when you look at something like Halo Infinite, it's it has the DNA, but it's different, right?
Yeah,
And so and then again, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying like if you're looking for what Destiny is, you temper your expectations because it's different. Um, and I think for the style of game that 343 is making, that is more esports focused and more like technical focused, then yeah, like their style is better. Like I don't think the Bungie Destiny style fits in today's
no,
ecosystem with Halo. and so, and so I think it's good that they aren't doing it anymore,
Because I
but it's
think
different.
I would say one of the things about Bungie Halo is they weren't afraid to have weapons that were kind of a little unbalanced
Yeah,
because like the rule of cool.
yeah,
But it worked for then. I don't think it would work if you were trying to do a competitive, like it would be those weapons would be banned in like competitive play.
yeah,
So you need to retweak them and balance them. And I think, and to your point about battle royale coming later, as someone who played a lot of Halo, as much as I would enjoy battle royale Halo, for me to enjoy that, they would need to have nailed all of the other aspects of Halo, like
yeah,
the capture the flag, the Slayer. Because if they don't nail the Slayer, the capture the flag, the King of the Hill, all of like the old school Halo gameplays, that means the gameplay in battle royale is not going to be like the
well,
way you
that
move, the
was
way you
my
play. It
point.
won't match, and
Yeah,
so you
like
have to nail that.
that was my point of like, if battle royale's in this at the start and they don't nail it, then people are going to blame battle royale and blame 343
Mm-hmm.
for focusing on this game mode that does that, when they should have been focusing on the core gameplay. Where if they hide it, even if it's done, if they hide it and it comes out and they nail the core gameplay and then they release battle royale, then all is forgiven, right?
Yeah, because
Like they already have a solid foundation, right?
yeah, because that's the thing too is when the game goes live, there are going to be tweaks and things that are going to need to change. There are going to be like bugs that you don't find because inevitably in your own internal playtesting, you will miss things, not because of like incompetence or like being
Yeah, it's
incapable.
just
Like
impossible.
it's impossible. But when millions of people play,
Yeah,
like
those come
two
out
people might
very
run into a
quickly.
bug. Like it's just the rule of numbers. Like the more people play, the more of these bugs are going to come up. So they're going to be gameplay tweaks. There's going to be balance changes. There are going to be things that are fixed, tweaked, and changed. And once that is done, that's when you flip the switch. You turn on battle royale, and then you eat Epic's lunch.
Yep.
Because I know I
Logan,
will be wanting to play.
we better be driving around in a warthog just hunting people down. Like this.
Yeah,
Come on, man.
like even with how Infinite was like shown off with this idea of almost being like the open
Open
world
world.
Halo thing, it's like this game just screams battle
Battle
royale.
Royale.
It just screams it. And I know because its multiplayer is going to be free, like maybe a younger generation might not jump, but I know I would want to jump and I want to drag everyone who I play Fortnite with me to be like, no, 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 no.
Hmm.
Like we're going to Halo, because it's Halo. Like,
Yep.
but no, I'm really glad that you said that it was really good. All the gameplay I saw and all the reviews I read, like just screamed, this was worth the wait. Like, yes, it
Yeah.
was supposed to come out last year. It was worth the
I'm
wait.
glad they took the extra time.
Yeah. All right. More Halo coming to you later this year, definitely.
Oh
Let's move on. You wanted this added to our little tracker, Pokemon
yeah.
Unite. Tell me
So we're
all
playing
about
a
this
lot of
because I
Pokemon.
have no idea what we're going to be talking about.
Do you know what Pokemon Unite is?
I know Pokemon is a game.
Okay.
That's how
Pokemon
much I
Unite
know.
Pokemon Unite was the game that they announced last year that is the Pokemon MOBA. So
Okay.
it has been out for Switch for 2 weeks. I am already at Masters level, top tier. That's how much I've been playing this game.
Of course.
And it's out for Switch now, and it comes out to mobile with crossplay in September. And this game is way better than it has any right to be. And I've been tweeting a ton about it, and it is something that there's a lot of controversy because a lot of people think it does have pay to win sensibilities. I disagree. I see how people can see it that way. I disagree. We could get into why I disagree, but we'll see how that conversation goes. But overall, like I've said that it is what Here's the Storm wanted to be and better
Like,
because it is. So the games are so it's structured like a regular MOBA, so it has towers, right? The towers don't shoot anyone. Basically, what it is every monster you kill gives you experience points that help you level up your abilities, and it's like Heroes where you choose between two different abilities at every point to see which one you want, and each one changes the way the character works. But so you level up, you pick the abilities, you do that through killing monsters or killing your opponent. There's no items. So the way that it works is like the every time you kill an enemy, orbs pop up, and you collect the orbs, and so then you have to uh, dunk them. So you press a button, and it makes a channel, and the channel is longer depending on how many orbs you have, and then that's how you don't destroy the towers by hitting them, you dunk on them. So the first towers are 80, the second ones are 100, and then obviously the one in the center, like your Nexus doesn't have HP. So say like if I'm holding 10 orbs, the dunk is relatively fast and it goes from 80 to 70. And then say if I have 30 orbs, it takes a pretty long time to channel, but of course I'm doing more quote unquote damage and scoring more points. And then the game is capped to 10 minutes, so there's no you don't
Interesting.
win the game earlier. It's 10 minutes flat. It's always 10 minutes, and it goes with whoever dunked the most orbs. So obviously, there's other things like there's Zapdos in the center of the map that makes it's like if you kill Zapdos, the time to channel goes away for 30 seconds for your team. So like if I have 50 orbs, I can just dunk immediately without needing to channel. So getting Zapdos is a big deal. Last 2 minutes, every dunk is worth double. So if I have 50 orbs, it's now a 100 dunk rather than a 50 dunk. Stuff like that, right? Um, does this sound appealing?
Yeah, because I know one of the things, like the 10-minute timer thing, is I think the thing that I find the most intriguing. Because I know I felt like when playing Heroes that if the match lasted right around the 15 to 20-minute mark, if it hadn't wasn't already about to end, like it just would
You're
start to
slogging, right?
drag. You're just slogging.
Yeah.
You're basically holding off defeat at that point, or it's been just a massive slog fest where both you and the other team are just like on the cusp of losing. It's just a matter of who can
Yeah.
get the flow of the fight moving their way, which can be
Right.
kind of, fun on some level, but it's just like a 30-minute match of Heroes is not like a great match.
Yeah. So that's the thing that like the 10-minute timer is actually perfect because again, it's flat 10 minutes. I know exactly how long this is going to go for. And the thing is like 10 minutes is the perfect time of like, man, I want to play more. And let me just grab another one. It's the perfect like one more game.
Yeah, the one more turn
And
mechanic
like,
of Civilization
yeah,
in
like Logan, it's been out 2 weeks and I have 280 games played,
oh wow.
which is when you think about like League of Legends or Heroes or any other MOBA, like there's no way that would even be possible time wise. Where like the 10-minute timer makes it so like I'm constantly in and out of a game. So like even if I'm losing, it's like okay, I only have like 2 minutes left, whatever. Like by the time the thing that makes it great is like Zapdos is well good and bad, right? Like Zapdos as the mechanic, and so Zapdos in combination with the double dunking. So like say I have 300 points for the first 8 minutes, right? My team has 300 points to like their 50 points. Whichever team gets Zapdos within that double dunk period, the last 2 minutes, just wins the game pretty much. So like the game really boils down to that last 2 minutes. So like even if you're playing and you're losing, you're
You
constantly
can
like,
still come
okay, well
back.
at least Zapdos is here, right? And then like if you're ahead, your goal becomes not to get Zapdos because like the advantage of you getting Zapdos, like you're just gonna get a bigger lead. Your objective becomes to defend Zapdos
Yeah.
because you don't want them to get the comeback mechanic, right? So like then that becomes a very good chess match. And then sometimes like, hey, if our whole team is defending Zapdos, then the other team's just gonna go and dunk anyway while we're out of position. So like then you get this weird chess match and it's good back and forth and it's really fascinating. But like again, there's a lot of depth to the game and it's not nearly as complicated as Heroes. But like in terms of what I would consider like a casual friendly MOBA, it is perfect.
Yeah, because I know one of my criticisms when I play Heroes is just the variety of maps, which sounds like a great idea. But the fact that the gameplay would vary from map to map sometimes could be frustrating because there were some maps that I absolutely hated because of whatever
Yeah.
extra gameplay mechanic they added, where
So that's the
I
good
just
thing
didn't find it
about
fun.
yeah, so that's the good thing about Unite as well is that uh the main map is like League of Legends, where the main 5-on-5 map is always the same and always constant. And so like a lot of strategies just popped up and like routing and just kind of optimization is happening already.
Yeah,
Like I already have kind of an optimized system of how I hit things, like the order in which we hit things. But then uh, there's quick match options that are like anywhere from 5 to 8 minutes, and so that are like 3v3 and 4v4, and those have different they're the same objective, but they have different map types for those. So that's how
cool.
you mix things up and make it a little more interesting that way. But otherwise, it's just kind of really fun to mess around with. But yeah, the game's great, and like I've been playing a ton of it, and like it's probably been my most played game for the last 2 weeks.
I'll have to check it out when
Um,
it hits iOS.
yeah, definitely give it a shot. And like again, the game feels fantastic. It's Toomey Studio, so it's a Riot Games Tencent studio, or it's not a Riot Games, it's a Tencent studio. So they know how to make MOBAs, they know how to make this work. Um, yeah,
Cool. Let's move on to the thing that got like the topic that is here because of this is just how long it's been since we've had an episode, but the series or sorry season finale of Loki. James, throw the spoiler tag up, even though everyone probably has seen it already.
yeah. We'll just roll through this quick because I don't want to like spend too much
Yeah,
time on these older topics. But
I
like,
know. I'm like, we have
I
to
love it.
talk about it, but
Yeah, like I loved it. I know my parents were, or my mom, my dad and Jenny were very much like, oh, I don't get it. I mean, as a comic book nerd, someone that was like, wait, like screaming Kang the Conqueror the entire season, for us to see him and get to see him and well, not exactly Kang the Conqueror, but for us to
yeah,
see a version of him, you know, and know that that's the direction they're going is super exciting. And I think like uh, that the portrayal of that and the scenes of with him in it are by far my favorite parts of the entire show. So, you know, look, that could be me as a comic book nerd finally getting to see a character that I like and like knowing the direction where they're going. But I'm I couldn't have been happier with the way the season went and the way it ended. And yeah, I was excited.
yeah. Because to your whole thing about it might be the comic book nerd or the fan in you. It's I was really enjoying the season up until Kane the Conqueror, and a lot of it was I. If you had said Kane the Conqueror, I would have been like, oh yeah, that's like some big Thanos level big bad, but I did not key in that's who it was.
Yeah,
So as someone who didn't know who it was, it actually was kind of anticlimactic and frustrating because I was just like
I could see that.
I was just like I didn't have that context. And because I didn't have that context, it just seemed like it was just like this weird ending that ran too long.
Right.
But then once I like went back and read and it was Ken the Conqueror, I'm like, okay, a lot of more things make sense, and I can see why a lot of people are like would be really excited by this episode. But
Yeah. So
I think
basically,
this is the
it's another version of it's a what you would consider a nice quote unquote version of King the
mhm.
Conqueror that is saying like, hey, I'm only doing this so the bad guy doesn't come in here.
Yeah, I'm trying to stop the bad guy. I think the problem here could kind of almost be the we knew
It
in
feels
like
like
the
setup.
Avengers.
the criticism that I had was like this. It turns Loki into a setup show
Hmm.
rather than like its own thing. Because
Hmm.
now you're setting
Agreed.
up King the Conqueror, right? So like,
Yeah.
you know, it makes it a little off. So like
Yeah.
again, for if you don't know that this sets up the big thing, like then you're like, I don't give a shit. And you're like, no, no, no,
Yeah.
no. Hold on. This is a big deal. This is
And
it's like Thanos at the end of Avengers where you're like, okay, and then I get who's the pink guy, and then people are like, holy shit, it's Thanos.
yeah, and I would say that my criticism would come in is the advantage of the Thanos appearance at the end of Avengers is it is he's on screen for what, 5 seconds,
Yeah,
if
30
that.
seconds.
It lets you as an audience member be like, who is that? Let me look into it. Like it can like gave you a reason to look. Like there was something to look into. We never really got that with Kang the Conqueror during the episode. Like it just here's this kind of like dude. And if it had been instead of like a teaser and I don't know how with how the episode laid out, I don't know how you could do it as a teaser. I don't know how you could do this without like completely undoing like the last episode. But I think that was kind of like the failing of it was the fact that if they had teased it or alluded to it or gave us a reason for the viewer to look up Kang the Conqueror in advance, it may have had like more impact. But because if you didn't know who it was, it's just it fell flat. But at the same
Yeah,
time, it sets up so much for both Doctor Strange. It sets up a lot of stuff for like Ant-Man and the Wasp. Like there are so many different things that this is going to impact to where I see why it's important that it was set up. It just felt like it was a weird switcheroo to throw on the audience at the very end if the audience wasn't already like a hyper Marvel fan. And I think that kind of it took me from thinking this was the best of the Marvel shows to being like it was okay. Like I enjoyed it. I did enjoy the Loki series, but it kind of like you said, it took it from being its own thing to just being another way to push the series forward, and that kind of just for me like took away a bit of the like the fun and soul of this series because it just kind of
right.
became like another. It just became another thing.
Well, like they set it up pretty early where the judge is one of Kang's cohorts in the comics, and then like Renslayer is a pretty prominent name related to Kang, and then Aelith, the big floaty fog monster guy, is like the gatekeeper of Kang. So like they set it up pretty early if you know what's happening. Um, but again, like they don't make it very obvious to like people that don't know what's going on, and I think that was the probably the biggest problem. But yeah, like Kang, if Kang's supposed to be the next Thanos level villain for this like set of phases, like it's exciting to see him introduced in this way, where he's introduced a little bit but not really.
Yeah, because it's
And
not
like I
Kang the
think that's
Conqueror. It's just a variant.
yeah, and I think that's really creative and like really interesting to see a character that important introduced in a TV show.
Yeah, I think that says as much as I might be critical of it, at the same time says a lot about the value that Feige and Marvel sees with these series
Yeah, 100%.
in a way that the other Marvel TV stuff never got this level of integration or attention or care.
Even though Agents of Shield was still one of the best superhero shows of all time.
But anyway, that's it for Loki. By the way, here's we before you move on, James, leave it on the Marvel tag. Here's how you could probably guess how I felt watching Black Widow because I forgot to add it to our list of things to discuss.
Okay, so could we talk about this? Because this is a little thing. I I loved it. I think it to me it's a top 10 Marvel movie.
I walked out and went, that was okay. Like
I
I
absolutely loved it. this the story and like the family moments of that movie are so good. From the
like
from the
I
point from the point where they all four or like where they rescue Red Guardian from the prison. From that point onwards, I was 100% in on this movie.
Oh yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it, but like I guess what it really came down to for me was that was the we ended up going to see it at the theater. It was like me, James, Jeff, Kelly, Charles, and we
Hmm.
all walked out and went, well, that was fun, but we couldn't sit there and argue. Like we didn't feel like it had been worth going to the theater instead of all chipping in and getting
And
like
buying
it
Disney Plus,
getting it on Disney Plus and like just staying at someone's
right?
house. And I think um that's kind of just how I felt while watching. I'm like, I'm not sure this was like worth the joy. Like I would have much rather have just stayed at home and watched it. Like that doesn't necessarily make it a bad movie, but I think it also just kind of says a lot about how I felt about the film. Was I was just like, oh, I think I would have probably would have had a better time not at the theater. But
Sure, that's fair. I mean, we bought it on Disney Plus, so I've watched it multiple times now, and like I
yeah,
just love that movie. I think it's great.
no, it was just one of those things where I was just like, man, like I did not think this would be the movie where I'd sit there and be like, oh yeah, I probably should have stayed at home and like paid the
Like
$30.
I'm I'm crazy excited for Shang-Chi. So
I'm excited about that one.
I'm
I'm really excited about
I'm
that one.
over the mood excited for that movie.
But I do know my first IMAX film, so it won't be my first time in the theater, but my first IMAX film is going to be Dune.
Oh,
Um, it's
big
definitely going to be
boy.
Dune because that is one I even if it is streaming at the same time, that is one I feel like is going to need to be seen on a big screen.
Yeah.
Um, but let's move on. Finally, let's hit Star Wars. The reason this show exists. We talked about Disneyland a bit, but we there was also an announcement this week with details about the Galactic Star Cruiser, which is the or Starliner. I
Do you want to spend 6 grand, Logan?
know, like that's the thing is like when you break down what it includes, it isn't like the worst thing. Like because it includes your pass to Disney World. Or to whatever the park is that has Galaxy's Edge,
Yeah.
in
Which,
Florida.
by the way, is like the worst part.
Oh boy. So it
It's
includes
at
that.
Hollywood. It's at Hollywood Studios. So for
Yeah.
anyone that doesn't know, Hollywood Studios is, in my opinion, far away the worst of the Florida parks. But that's just my opinion.
So you get
But
a free pass to the worst park. Um, you get it includes all food and drink at the hotel, and I think if you eat at Galaxy's Edge, it's
yes,
included in your booking. I'm not sure about the
correct.
rest of the park. And then there's also like basically it's Disney's closest approximation to Westworld, but set in Star Wars when you're on quote on
Yeah,
the ship. So it is like a whole experience, but it's just like when you break it down, I think it was like 1,200 a night per person.
yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot. Now, if you take a kid, it becomes a bit more reasonable. But if you're like an adult, if like you and me were booking a trip, it would be
I mean, do you want to go,
absolutely
Logan?
ridiculous.
Didn't you want to go and do this?
I
I mean,
mean,
the thing to me is I'd want to go, but like it is not. I don't feel like I would enjoy it as much as like if we just went to Florida and went to Disneyland.
yeah, it's like one of those things where I'm like, there's a part of me that'll be like, man, this would be kind of fun experience. Like, there, like it'd be a fun experience. I don't
It'd
know
be a
if
fun
I'd want to.
experience.
I just don't know if I'd want to spend the money.
Well, my thing
Like,
is like, Logan, we could spend 2 grand to do the Star Wars experience and go to, Hollywood Studios and whatever, or we could spend 3 days doing that, or we could spend a week in Florida doing whatever the hell we wanted at Disney World.
Yeah. And I think that's really
And like
the
and like one sounds way more appealing to me. I don't know about
yeah.
you, but one sounds way more appealing to me.
Yeah, like it's one of those things where I'm like I can't justify the amount it would cost to do it when there are so many other things like basically I could go and have this like immersive Star Wars experience for 3 days, or that's like 4 years of Disneyland passes.
Yeah, or like to a whole week in Florida to go
Hey,
to
we're a whole week in
multiple
Florida.
parks.
Heck, that like I looked at that and
We could go to every park, Logan.
right,
We could go
we
to
could do
each
like
of the four parks.
a Florida extravaganza. We could go to Europe and like hitchhike for a week.
Yeah, like
Like
again, to me, it's just a thing of like I don't know if I'd enjoy it enough to justify the price tag.
right, like I know I would enjoy it. I just is like
Well,
it's just like
but like, there's other things that I would enjoy more for less.
yeah, it's just like that's gonna be the thing is I'm gonna need someone to walk out of there and be like, no, 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 this is gonna change your life. And then I need to have at least
Yeah.
17 other people say the exact same thing, like independently, not in
Oh,
like a
Logan,
conversation, like just to even think about
if
it.
you if you did it and came out and were like, you need to do this, it would change your life. I wouldn't believe you. Not gonna lie. Like I would just be like, you're
That's
full of
just
shit.
because
Like,
Logan isn't like Logan's a giant Star Wars nerd. Of course he thinks it's gonna change your life.
no, like it's not even that. It's just a thing of like I would need way more convincing.
It's it's one of those things where it's just like I would rather probably do this than spend like the same amount of money to do like a cruise. Cause like to
I don't
me,
know, man.
like
Cruises are fun.
yeah, I a lot of my thing with cruises, it isn't like oh let's go around on a like I actually do enjoy boats. It's more
Yeah,
the uh cruises seem to be just like mobile germ factories sailing the seas.
it's
That would
true.
be
But I mean,
my
like
thing.
the thing with like I've been on a couple cruises, and like it's the thing is like everything's taken care of. Everything is like it's just a place for you to hang out and like relax and do whatever you want. And like they're just big playgrounds almost. The thing is like when you have something like that, it's just like a place to relax. And like I know this is supposed to be a cruise like experience,
Hmm.
but then you become a thing of like uh it becomes a thing of oh hold on, sorry. It becomes a thing of like with the Star Wars thing, you have an itinerary and you have like things to do, and it's like, man, at what point am I going to be like, man, fuck this, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I don't get to choose what I
Yeah,
want to do.
it because here's the other thing too. It's like it's $1,200 a person a night. Like if you break it down, like it's 1,200 a person a
Yeah,
night if you're just like two adults going. And it's it's not just that it's expensive, it's just like that's if you go on a weekday. Like it's going to be even more if you go on like a weekend. To where it's almost like this deal only really makes sense if you're a huge Star Wars fan and you're doing like a family trip. Because I think if it was like two adults and a single child, it was only like a few $100s more. At which point it becomes starts becoming like way more reasonable. And so it's almost just like I don't want to say it's punitive towards adult like it's basically like if you're not going with your family, it's almost like not worth going at all. But I also wonder with how expensive it is. I wonder because I've seen some people speculate that the price is going to go down after a few months. And I there
I
was a part
would
of me that
hope
wonders like
so.
I would hope so. And I think a lot of that is going to be like how successful this is at this price. Because it seems like
Yeah,
the general consensus I pick up on, like from looking around on the internet is everyone is kind of almost in the same boat as you and me, where we're like, yeah, I'm sure I'd enjoy it, but like for that much, like it's just like it is expensive enough that it isn't like a yeah, sure, let's do it. Like it becomes one of those ones where like it just the dollar you see the dollar sign, you don't see the experience at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's just unfortunate.
Yeah,
And again, I'm sure this is an amazing once in a lifetime experience, but at what cost?
at the cost, it's something you're gonna only do once in your lifetime.
At what cost?
Yeah, and it's just like and that's kind of my thing. Is like if the prices go down, if hopefully the prices come down, if it all of a sudden became like instead of being
Like
at like
what
1,200, if it wasn't 1,200 per person per night, but let's just say like it will probably never hit this low. If it hit like $1,200 total, I would probably be very seriously considering it.
That's fair. I think that's about the right price that I would be
Yeah,
looking at. But like, bro, the 1,200 a night is insane.
yeah. Like if it was like $1,200 for the full experience for me to go, I would be seriously considering it. But 1,200 a night. I saw some people trying to like argue that it isn't overpriced online. They're like, oh no, this is like the trip you save up for a few years, and I'm just like, yeah, over that few year period you're saving up the money for this. How many of you aren't going to be sitting there going, am I really saving money for this?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, am I really saving money for this? Or you look at places to go to Florida and go to Disney World in general, and you go, wait,
yeah, you're like,
I can
wait,
do, I can get what? I can get a week in Florida to go to every single Disney park and hang out and do whatever I want
yeah,
for the same price.
and that sounds like a way more relaxing trip, honestly.
Yeah,
Because you're
Disney
right.
World's great.
Because if you say you and I booked this and we went, you and I both would want to actually try to get as much as we could out of it.
Uh,
And I can just see that being like after like the second day, I could just see that being like,
do you want to skip out and go to
yeah, you want to
Animal
skip out and
Kingdom?
just like go do some other thing? Like
Yeah.
it's as much as I love Star Wars, it's just like I guess that's the other question. How much of this is like how much of this is kind of like a real like, an adventure you can explore where it's kind of optional, and how much of it is like here's your itinerary, because that could make a huge difference. But yeah, it's I want to say like 3 months after it opens, would not be shocked at all if all of a sudden like the ticket price or the price to go drops and like cuts in half. Like it would not shock me at all if all of a sudden it went from being like the 6 grand for two people to like it's 3 grand for two people.
Oh, I think they're gonna struggle to get people to get in here.
Oh, you mean like too many people trying to get in or
No,
not
I think they're
enough?
gonna struggle. Not enough.
Yeah, I think they've priced themselves out, honestly.
Yeah,
Like
because
I
think
think
about it. Like, I think they'll get the whales and they'll get the hardcore in the
yeah,
first like month. But remember, it's only a 2-day experience, so they got to fill. Like it's not like Disney World or even Disneyland where people stay for a week, or like well, Disneyland or Disney World more so than Disneyland. But like Disney World, people are usually staying for a week, so that's thousands and thousands of people, but they're staying a week, so it's 4 times a month. Think about the 2-day experience of this, where you have to fill thousands, like a couple hundred people for 15 times a month.
I think you're yeah, because that would be my thing. I'm like the first month is going to be impossible to book,
Yeah, but again, like
but then
how
after
fast
that it's
before
going to
that
be
dries
like
up?
yeah. After that, I don't see this at this price. I do not see this being
No way.
consistent at this price. Like I just don't see it.
I mean, I
Um,
could see a world where it does get as low as what you're saying,
mhm.
to be completely honest. I don't see this being feasible long term.
Yeah, like I think if it gets as low as I say, I think then they will be able to consistently book it. Because then if it cuts in half, that's where it's closer to that $1,200 mark I said.
Yeah.
And to where it starts becoming like a yes, it's still a trip I would have to save for, but it isn't like instead of it being like a trip I have to save for a few years that I'm going to plan to do a few years from now. It could be like, hey, do you want to do this like end of next year? Like just go like in October or something. It becomes that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the moment it becomes that, it could be successful. And until they hit that point, I do not see this being the success they hope it is. And again, we could be wrong, but we're also like the demographic that would gravitate to something like this. We are giant Star Wars fans with disposable incomes. And in your case, you have a child. Like, it screams like this should be the type of thing that we would be like chomping at the bit for. But everyone I've talked to has just looked at it and been like, this is crazy.
Why?
Yeah. And they're all like Star Wars fans too, who like you and me, we spent how much on damn lightsabers?
Yeah.
Without a second thought?
Yeah.
Okay, there was a couple thoughts, but it just, once it was booked, it was like,
yeah. Whatever. I mean, there's thoughts of like, what color do I get?
Yeah. It stopped being the price. It started being like, what color do I get? What type of saber do I want? Like, I'm tempted to even get a second one. Like, to be totally honest, I am incredibly tempted to just build a second one because
it's such a good experience.
Yeah, it was a great experience. But yeah, this thing is just too expensive to be like a casual. Like the lightsaber, I did think for like a couple days about whether or not I wanted to spend $200 on it. I remember you and I talking about it. This one, I don't think we would talk about it for a couple days because I think we would have talked ourselves. We've already done it essentially. We've already talked ourselves out of it because we weren't even thinking about it seriously. And yeah, they are not starting from a strong position just from pricing. But let's move on. Let's have Bad Batch because there's only one episode left. They've already greenlit it for a second season. And how many episodes are you behind?
Like 4 or 5 behind.
You're still 4 or 5 behind. I got caught up yesterday during the move. I just couldn't stay on top of it because the thing too was like I knew when I'm still having the same
problem where just like good. I'm not like chomping at the bit trying to watch the next episode. I think that's my problem.
I found yesterday where I was able to watch quite a few episodes back to back because I was like, I should probably get caught up just because I'm like, Chris probably isn't caught up and I can always text him and find out. But yeah, I might as well just get caught up now just in case. Whatever. I'm going to watch them anyway at some point.
Yeah. And like, I'm going to finish it. Like, I'm going to finish it. It's just a matter of like, I'm not compelled in the same way that I was with like other shows.
Yeah. Like Clone Wars where we were.
Yeah, where I'm like, I need to watch this next one. Or like, this is like where at midnight, I'm like, let's go.
Yeah. While watching this, I found it more that enjoyable being able to watch multiple episodes. Like, this is a weird thing where I think the weekly release schedule is better for a lot of shows. Like Mandalorian, the weekly release schedule meant we were constantly talking about it, obsessing over it. It made it like must-see TV. And I think Bad Batch is one of those shows where I'm just like, I wonder if this would have been better off if they just released all of them at once.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, it hasn't quite caught on. And it's good. I enjoy it. And I'd even say that Disney clearly learned from their mistake with Rebels, where they gave it no money. This one, you could tell that, like, nope, they realized that was a bad call and they've given the show a decent budget because it looks gorgeous. But even with, like, the normal pattern of things picking up towards the end, it's just, like, it's interesting. Like, I'm glad they're exploring this timeline, part of the timeline, because it's been kind of just an unknown. But like you, I haven't been like, oh my God, I have to watch it. Like, I was frequently watching it like Saturdays. Yeah. Like, so it wasn't even the day of. It was like, oh, it's the weekend. Oh, I still need to watch Bad Batch. Let me watch that now.
Yeah, it's something that I've been putting on in the background, and then like when something happens, I'm like, wait, what happened? And then I have to, rewind and go back, and I'm like, I'm like half paying attention. I'm like, man, I wish this was more like engaging, probably the wrong word, but like more engaging, I guess. And just like it doesn't it's holding my attention, but I'm not like glued to the screen.
It's definitely, I feel like this is also like a slower paced show
Yeah.
than Clone Wars was, or even Rebels. Like this one is just a little more content to sit in the universe. And I
Yeah,
think
which
it
is fine.
and I think given the like the uncertainty the characters have with the timeline, it makes sense that things aren't moving quickly. But at the same time, it just means that as a someone who's consuming the media, I also am moving at a slower pace.
Yes.
Like I because as much as we just spent a bit of time talking about Loki and how like I felt the season finale kind of because I didn't know who Kane was, didn't really work for me. I still made sure to watch Loki while we were moving. Like I wanted to stay on top of that show.
Yeah.
And Bad Batch, I kind of was able to let sit.
And like it doesn't
Um,
affect your life, right? You're not like
yeah,
thinking about it. And that's kind of the point of like it doesn't grab me in the same way that everything else usually does with Star Wars or Marvel, and I'm like, oh, that's concerning.
yeah, it's still good. I would not, and I think that's the thing. As much as we're like not gripped by it as much, it's still good.
Oh, it's still
But
really good. It's just a thing of like if 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 us as like hardcore people aren't enthralled, then like I'm very curious what a wider audience thinks.
yeah, and like to the point where I'm even would say if someone went to watch it, I would almost say like, hey, should I like right now? It's probably fine just because if someone started watching it today, they might, and if they didn't binge it all in one sitting, they'd probably be caught up to the point where the final episode when it airs Friday. But I would probably be sitting there going, yeah, you might as well just like wait until like the season ends, just to like kind of do it all in one go, because it's good,
Yeah,
but
I
it's not
mean,
necessarily like
I would even say like if someone was like, "Hey, should I watch Bad Batch?" Like I would be like, "Watch Clone Wars instead."
yeah. Like, did you really enjoy Clone Wars?
Yeah,
Oh no, I thought it was okay. I'm like, well, you probably could,
yeah. So again, it's a good show, but I think this is a pretty step down from what we've seen before.
because I think one to kind of what was the last episode you watched?
I don't even remember.
Well,
That's kind of where I'm at.
bit of a spoiler, um, but I'm sure you may have already heard this. There is an episode where we get an appearance by Hera.
Yeah,
And in that episode, a lot of it is spent with the Syndulla family. And I think it's one of their better episodes. And it's also an episode where the Bad Batch probably appeared the least. And I think
yeah,
that
and that's
is,
telling.
yeah.
So, that's I think it has a lot to do with the characters. I think like they're just not as compelling.
Yeah. I'd say they've grown on me over time, but I still would not like call them like the most interesting characters. Like these aren't like it almost I wonder how much of it was they wanted to not just do another series with Rex.
That's
But
fair.
there's a part of me is just like how much better off would we be if we just had another Rex series? Because let's be honest, every time Rex appears, you're just like, yes, where have you been? But yeah, well, you'll have to get caught up or something so we can talk about the finale next broadcast. But you have two
Yeah,
weeks. You have two
I'll
weeks.
catch up on it.
But
Yeah, I'll catch up on it. But yeah, it's I'm not like chomping at the bit looking forward to like seeing what happens next, which is again something where I'm like, oh, this is new.
yeah, because I know by this point in Rebels, I want to say it was like there was like a 10 episode, like the first 10 episode run, bit of the run. I would watch every week, but it was kind of like how I felt with going into this, where I'm like, I don't need to watch it day of. I can watch it like the weekend. And then it's like episode 11 or something when Tarkin shows up, and all of a sudden the show is just go. And it became like must see for me. This show has not done that yet. And at this point, I wonder if it ever will. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but that's just kind of where I'm at. But anyway, anything else you feel like we need to go over, Chris?
No, I think that's good. I think I think that's it.
Cool. All right. In that case, James, roll credits. Please like, share, subscribe, do all the fun things you're supposed to do on the interwebs, like clicking bells, because who knows why. If you have any questions, you can always send an email to feedback@quality3.net. Otherwise, you can always find us on Twitter. That's where Chris is the most active. And if I'm on social media, that's usually where I'm the most active too. But otherwise, please stay safe. Wear a mask. If you aren't vaccinated, get your goddamn vaccine, you son of a bitch. Otherwise, stay safe, take care, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.